There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
Oh, great. You got a doorbell camera. Now you got a front row seat to your house getting robbed.
No.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Get out of my house!
Ooh, Mom's jewelry. There goes the TV. I'm sure it'll turn up at the pawn shop.
No!
Just because you can see them, that doesn't mean you can stop them. With Slogans, you get 24-hour monitoring, a free home security system, and professional installation. Plus, a free doorbell camera.
Free?
One that'll actually work for you. It's not total security unless it's the Sloman Shield. Call 1-800-ALARM-ME.
Tuesday, 8 p.m. It is time for the Squared Circle Digest. I'm Sean Stanley, and if my mic would stay where it's supposed to, it'd be great. We are here for another, probably about a half hour tonight, talking some pro wrestling. And not a lot to get to. The pay-per-view was last week. And I thought these shows this week kind of fell flat. And looking at the ratings, which I have right here on my little pad, the numbers do kind of back me up. Let's see. We'll go all the way back to Dynamite. Dynamite was the only one that was up. It went up for 858,000 from 833. Then you had Rampage was at 447. That's up from 394. SmackDown was 232, which was down from 2.45. Raw 1.705, down from 1.827. So there are your ratings for this week. And as I said, I don't think, again, we're on the road to, or the roads to WrestleMania. So let me push this up a little bit more. There we go. So we are on the roads to WrestleMania now with the WWE, the AEW coming off of Revolution pay-per-view. And I thought the wrestling would be better this week. It was not. I already see Frankie Fresco jumping in, Wyatt injury. It is an illness is what they're calling it. There was a couple different reports going around. Apparently he has an illness that's been keeping him out. And he did not show up for the MSG card, which apparently he was booked for. There was also a couple different versions of that story. Then Bobby Lashley released a text early Monday morning, paraphrasing here, but he said he's ready for the biggest stage. Don't care who my opponent is. And then Some are saying it's again creative. Vince McMahon was back at Raw. He was. I know reports that he was back this week, but last week when Cena was there, he was there. Maybe there's something there as far as Wyatt. Again, there was some creative issues when Vince was in control, and now all of a sudden there's an illness. Is it? Is there more to it than that? We shall see. I found it odd that there was no really Bray Wyatt talk at all on Raw or SmackDown, unless I missed something somewhere. I don't remember any little cryptic messages anywhere. I don't remember any there. Maybe I may have missed it. Not gonna sit here and say that that I was watching, that intently. Didn't have my attention like that. But I did not see anything that said anything there. And so this brings me to this, because watching that Omos and Brock Lesnar segment on Raw just made it I don't know, man. I feel like who was it? Who was the coach? Philbin, right? He got what was the old saying? You got damn it, what is it? What was he when he got queasy, right? Or something like that. He got queasy. It may be queasy. Watching Omos and Brock Lesnar, knowing, and then to me, it should have always been Lesnar Lashley at WrestleMania. Lashley, if Lesnar's not extending and Lesnar's leaving the WWE, this would have been the perfect time to give Bobby Lashley a pick-me-up and push him up the card. This was a chance for Bobby Lashley to finally get what he's earned, to me, because I think Bobby Lashley's earned it twofold. And instead it goes to Omos against Brock Lesnar out of nowhere. They're trying to create something when you had, look, Lashley had him locked in the Hurt Lock and he had to low blow him. There was a story there. To me, it should have been, I don't think if Lesnar's not coming back and Omos goes over on Lesnar at WrestleMania, first off, I will lose my shit. I'll just say that, okay? Because, look, if Omos can't go over on Braun Strowman over in Saudi, he sure can't go over on Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. But this was a chance to give Lashley a big boost going over, ending the feud with Lesnar, again, because Lesnar's saying he's not going to come back right now. But Omos against Brock Lesnar does nothing for me. And Frankie says, give him Braun Strowman. Not a bad match, but there's going to be no buildup to anything they do. Now, again, it's wrestling. Could they just be pushing this off? Because now, Alexa's also sent out tweets like, I'm not on hiatus. They know where I am. So is this just something building up to where Lashley shows up? Who's my opponent? And all of a sudden the lights go out. And it's Alexa, it's Bray Wyatt, it's Uncle Howdy, it's, all this stuff. Could they be, building up to do the big swerve at the end? I mean, look, wilder things have happened, right? So, we'll see how they go, because I just found it very odd that there hasn't been much of a mention, and then Lashley's got to kind of throw his own out there like, hey, I'll fight anybody. So it almost feels like there's almost possibly going to be like an open shot, or maybe they bring somebody in. There's been talk that Jay White might be signing with WWE, although I think he'd probably go to NXT for maybe a little bit just to get used to the WWE way of wrestling toward the cameras and all that. I can see him doing a couple matches there. But again, maybe they're setting up for some big debut that nobody's really, looking out for. But to me, I feel that they've done travesty to Bobby Lashley. If this is a creative difference and Bray Wyatt is out of WrestleMania, and now all of a sudden Lashley has nothing to do at WrestleMania, and you have Omos against Brock Lesnar, and what could be Brock Lesnar's last match with the company. And oh, by the way, Omos was the one that Vince wanted to take on Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. So maybe there's more to the whole Vince McMahon might still be running things than we think. Also, Hall of Fames came out. A lot of people thought it was going to be the Great Muta. It ended up being Rey Mysterio, who's still a WWE superstar, current WWE superstar, and looks like he'll probably be taking on Dom. I'm not sure, they're still working that story. Hasn't been. He said last night he would not fight him, and he walked out. So we shall see. But it will be Rey Mysterio, the first inductee into this year's WWE Hall of Fame. Interesting note: Conan will be that's who Ray wanted, and WWE okayed it. So Conan will be the one doing the induction of Rey Mysterio. Also, they think Great Muta will also get into the Hall of Fame this year, as well as Stacy Keibler. Those are the three names being mentioned. They said this class is going to be a lot smaller than normal. We'll see if it's just those three. There's still, 4 weeks? So there might be, I would say maybe four inductees this year in the Hall of Fame. We'll see what happens there. But again, I like the Rey Mysterio one, man. That guy, he's done a lot. He's a trendsetter. I like the Great Muta. That's another one, And again, Shinsuke Nakamura went over for a fight. WWE okayed it for him to go over and wrestle in Japan and fight with Muta over there. So, it makes sense. And then Stacy Keibler is the other name being mentioned. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the Bump on the Peacock Network, they will have, on the WWE Network on Peacock, they will have the next inductee, as well as Ric Flair will be a guest on that show. Let's see here. Terry says the Lashley Wyatt does nothing for me. The feud seems forced. They both feel forced. The Omos and Lesnar, and because they're just 6 weeks of trying to generate something, and it just, to me, it does nothing. I feel you should have left it Lashley Lesnar. If in fact it is Lesnar's last match, Lashley ends the feud with him, picks up the clean victory, however you want to do it. Lashley moves up the card, and now you've cemented a main eventer. Because to me, Omos is an attraction. Omos will never be a main eventer, will never be a title holder. He is an attraction. He's your Andre the Giant. That's an attraction there. He's not going to be a champion. Lashley, gets the victory over Lesnar. He advances. So, again, I think both of these matches are seeming pretty forced there, Terry. I like that Edge and Finn have the Hell in a Cell for WrestleMania. I love it as well. And then you saw last night, Balor says, my demons got kicked out of hell. So I believe it will end up being Demon Balor against, and everybody said it was going to be the Edge from the Brood. So we'll see how they work more toward including that into the WrestleMania buildup. And then let's see what other match they started developing more of the Asuka Bianca on air chemistry there. I like what they're doing with Asuka now with the blue and the unpredictability and everything. I believe that's what Asuka should be. It's kind of more of the character what she was before she came here. And I like what they're doing with her. And again, she's not becoming full-fledged heel. She's not really a baby, kind of there in the middle. So we shall see where it goes there. Interesting thing too, when I was doing my the prep for the show, the odds have all the challengers except for Austin Theory so far, the matches that have been, announced, I'm going with here. That being the Roman Reigns and Cody. Cody is the favorite. The Charlotte versus Rhea. Rhea is the favorite. Bianca versus Asuka. Asuka is the favorite. And then Theory and Cena. Theory is the only one that right now is, quote unquote, the betting favorite, if you want to go with those odds that are out there. Terry asks, Sean, you think Lesnar is leaving for good? if they offer him money, again, if the money's there, and I think if a feud is there, I just don't know that, there's no more Undertakers. There's no more, does he want to come back to fight Omos? Does he want to keep coming back to fight Lashley? Does he want to keep coming back to fight Strowman? Him and Roman have been about played out. What else? Who else is there, I guess, for Brock to take on at this point? It's almost like, hey, been there, been here, done it. You know what I'm saying? I just don't know. And again, Omos here, I think Omos a little out of his league a little bit. Because again, Lesnar doesn't play in there. He's in there to do business, and he's in there to get out. So we'll see how that match goes. On that there, let's see here. Gilbert Martinez, from what I've seen, Roman is a very nice guy, out of character. From everything I've seen as well, Gilbert. I know he's, again, he's done some of the, the Make-A-Wish. He's done things. He's done a lot of charitable things and things like that. But everything I know about him, he's a very, family-focused individual and seems to be, a good man. With what's that said, I mean, I have never had the opportunity to talk to him. I've never had the opportunity to talk to Roman. Sean, what do you think they're going with this Otis storyline? I love it. I believe they should have kept, this is Otis. They should have kept the Otis with the, Money in the Bank briefcase laying down when Mandy Rose gets thrown over at the Royal Rumble. Mandy Rose lands on him and he's like, hey, hey, hey. And then Mandy Rose gets back in because feet didn't hit the ground because she landed on Otis. Comedic Otis, to me, is more money-making than what they were trying to do with Otis. And maybe if they would have brought him in, like, Bronson Reed was brought in as a killer. So I can see him as a killer. Otis was never really brought in as a killer. I mean, he was doing the worm, dropping a thing, shaking his belly. He's always been that comedic guy. And I think this with the Maximum Male Models fits that bill, especially, you saw him the other night with the jacket, and he's got it open and he's slapping the belly and doing all that. I think this is going to be, if they keep it a comedic storyline. Again, it's wrestling. All they got to do is have, Maximum Male Models turn on them like that, and then it's Otis against Maximum Male Models. But at this point, I know they're going to do something with Chad Gable. They're going to separate them, and Chad Gable's going to have a more serious character. I don't know that Chad Gable will go heel. And if he does that become Otis's first opponent? You saw him he's like, hey, coach, I'll get you later. And he went over with the Maximum Models yesterday. So we'll have to see where that story goes. But I love comedic Otis. I'm here for comedic Otis. As a matter of fact, I can't get it now because it's behind the belt. But I got the Money in the Bank Otis. I've always loved comedic Otis. So got there, chat should go full court angle. Yeah, I think that's the way they see it as well. He's got to get through this shush thing, and then we'll get back to more legit Chad Gable. And I think you'll see, because they said he's going to get a push, man. I mean, I don't know if he's going to get a push to the main event, but I could see him challenging for, when Theory drops or maybe that's Theory's next opponent for the U.S. title. Gable and Theory would be a pretty good match for the U.S. title. So got Derek, you're back. Hell yeah. Yes, sir. Been back for a couple weeks now. Otis is best known. Yes, agree. Sean, if Cody wins at WrestleMania, who do you think his next opponent will be? Let's see. Let's look at how this is going. Seth is taking on Logan Paul. You got him talking with KO. I think KO and Sammy becomes a team, and I think they win the tag team title, so I think that'll take them out. I would say maybe you put Solo there, because I don't think it'll be Roman right away. I think Roman might step aside, but I think it could be somebody from the bloodline. And if the Usos lose the tag team titles, it could be Jay. Why not put Jay Uso there and have him feud with, at least for the first month or so after the title reign? But then also you have to remember he could go to SmackDown, and then you'll have McIntyre, Sheamus, Let's see who else over there would be a good opponent. Ricochet. I would love to see Ricochet against Cody Rhodes. Not necessarily pay-per-view, but as far as like a SmackDown match, I would love to see that. Frankie Fresco says Bobby Lashley. It could be. I just don't know. You know, my whole thing with this Brock Lesnar thing was thinking they were going to have Omos in the match and then kind of bring back the Hurt Business. You know, Bobby Lashley come out and get his, on Lesnar. They beat him down, leave him laying. That can kind of be Lashley's last statement. But now I don't know. They haven't really done a whole lot with the quote unquote Hurt Business as far as WWE goes. I know MVP, sent out a picture on his Instagram and some other things like that. But as far as WWE goes and WWE storyline, they really haven't done a whole lot with that. Or even, Bobby Lashley, hell, I don't remember seeing him on the Raw last night. So again, without his Twitter, there's no more there's not really much going on with WWE and that goes. Also, WWE, there's a sale update. The company will meet with potential buyers in April in preparation for first round bids, and the price is still $9 billion. So we'll see where that leads. We're going to switch over now, and we're going to jump into some AEW here real quick. Look, man, I read somewhere, and it was comments. I believe it was Bully Ray, and I'm going to paraphrase. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. SoCal Derek's asking a WWE question. Let me get this one real quick. What the heck is going on with Bray? I heard all kind of stuff about him done again. You hearing anything? Right now, they're classifying it as an illness. There has been reports that it is a creative, creative issue. So we'll have to see. Right now, they're classifying it as being a physical issue, is what they're saying. That's all I know. That's all I'm hearing. And I've heard that from two of the people that I believe are probably real good sources, but they also did say that there's been talk that it could have been a creative difference. And remember, Vince McMahon was back last week, and I know there were some issues between Bray and Vince. I didn't hear anything about Vince being backstage this week. Apparently he was backstage to visit with Cena because Cena did make his return last week. So does all that, again, because some people were taken aback that Vince was there. Some people were happy, some were not. But that's one of those things. Terry says they're turning LA Knight. But that's what happens, Terry. When you're talent like, LA Knight, Ziggler, and you can work with anybody, unfortunately, you're back in the day, it was Brad Armstrong. Brad Armstrong can go in the ring and work with anybody. And because of that, he became, Barry Horowitz is another one who doesn't get hit, but he could work with everybody, man, and make everybody look good. But nowadays, there's difference between enhancement talent and what the guys are today. So ultimately, I think it's just because of how good he is, and he's getting a crowd reaction. So as long as the crowd keeps behind him, I think you might see more from LA Knight. But right now, he's just there. I mean, he was there to be Bray Wyatt's first opponent. You saw his match last night with Cody. The man can go. The man can go. Going to jump into AEW here, and I guess since somebody's already asking me about it, it says, are the Bellas coming to AEW? The Bellas have changed all their social media, and they have confirmed they have left the WWE. They are no longer the Bella Twins. They are now the Garcia Twins. And they have changed all their social media to match. And a lot of this started because at AEW Revolution, they were backstage. They took a picture with Saraya and with Renee Paquette. And everything broke loose. Of course, Bryan Danielson is already signed to AEW, so it makes sense for Bree to be there and see what happens with Nikki there. So now we'll have to see with what the next move is. They are doing a show called, I think it's the Garcia Twin Show. They did on social media. If you go to their Twitter feed. I saw it there. So I don't know if more of this is toward. Um, Actually, I believe their last name really is Garcia, and that's how they came up with the Garcia twins. I think now they're using their birth names is as far as the Garcia twins. So I think that's where the Garcia came from. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe their birth names was Garcia. If I'm not mistaken, double check me on that. But I believe when they did some of the documentaries, it was like Nicole Garcia, and I can't remember what Bree was. Cannot remember. But so ultimately they're going back to their original names. But again, they are doing, you have their the show that I just said, the Garcia Twins show. Nikki had a one with A&E where it wasn't the Bella anymore. It was like Nikki I Do or something like that. So they've been doing a lot of stuff on their own, but still technically under the WWE umbrella because it was on those channels there that WWE does. So we'll see where they go. But let's dive more into AEW. Let's see. Somebody said up here, can't watch a full episode of AEW. And I was going to get into a story before I answered SoCal Derek's question. Bully Ray was on Busted Open Radio, and he was asked about, what he thinks some of the issues might be with, and again, I'm kind of paraphrasing this whole thing, so not exact, why the numbers for AEW don't seem to be going anywhere. And he said because they're not really doing stories anymore. And I went back and I thought about this, and now since, when Tony Khan said he had the first 4 champions picked out, he had 2 years worth of, storylines drawn up. We've gone through those. And now since then, what have been the big stories? I mean, MJF has caught on, but there hasn't been a long, lengthy storyline with him. And now, again, injuries go against this. People leaving the company go against it. There's a lot of things of reasons why some stories, storylines stop and things like that. But one of the things that I noticed is that after I read that from where I went back and I just kind of, again, through memory, I'm not going back and watching all of, but when you look back, what are the stories that you followed? Remember, when they first came in, you had, Adam Page lost to Chris Jericho, so Chris Jericho became the first champion. And then for 2 years, it was Adam Page. They ended up setting it up because then Adam Page teamed up with Kenny Omega, and then they split up, and then Kenny Omega went heel and ended up winning the title. But that was to set up the whole storyline of Adam Page trying to get to become a world champion. And then ultimately he gets there. There was a payoff of Adam Page winning the championship. He became the 4th champion in the company. And so there was payoffs. There were stories there. You've had Inner Circle, taking on, let's see. They took on, who was it? It was Hardy. It was the Elite, I guess. Inner Circle and the Elite. Then you had Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. You've had stories before. Now it just feels like some of the stuff is just being thrown together. There's no real long storylines other than the heavyweight title. I mean, the Bryan Danielson MJF leading up to Revolution, I thought was a good story. But everything else playing out, I mean, Hobbs winning the TNT title last week after Wardlow just won it at the Revolution pay-per-view. So you had Wardlow go in, kind of almost dominate Samoa Joe to show up to Dynamite to lose it to Hobbs in his hometown. I feel like some of this stuff is just, they need to go to more. And again, I don't know that they don't have this already, so maybe I'm wrong here, but there's got to be more than just Tony Khan, to me, giving the okay for what is a story and what isn't a story, as far as being creative. And I get it. They've got, more people involved and things like that. But I don't feel that. Let me rephrase this. I feel that maybe some of the wrestlers have too much control over their characters on screen, and AEW is trying to chase that to make a story out of it. Instead of where WWE says, this is your character, this is what you do, more strict line. And again, I get it. We have been more conditioned the WWE way. We've watched it for much longer. So that's kind of the way, it feels right. And I'm not saying that the wrestling on AEW is the performers, the superstars, the stars for both companies are kicking ass. But it's also got to be more about entertainment. And that's the part that at times you had a kick-ass pay-per-view. I thought the pay-per-view was pretty damn good. And then to follow it up with that show, it's missing something. I've said this many times, and I can't even put my finger on it. Every time I try to think about it, I don't know what it is. Because the action in the ring is good. Is there some issues with some of the stuff they do? To me, yes. Am I going to sit here and harp on every little thing that no, I'm not going to do that. But to have a kick-ass pay-per-view and for your number to only go up 20,000, I mean, that just doesn't make sense as a company. And apparently Warner Brothers is happy with them. As a matter of fact, doing the research, they're going to get another show. And it looks like they're trying to close in on a third weekly show that's going to be similar to AEW Rampage. So another hour show, which again, it needs to be live. They have to figure out how to do some of this live. Here's another thing. Next week, actually, no, this week's Rampage. Do you know what the start time for this week's Rampage is? 11:30 Eastern time after the NCAA tournament. So you went from, again, I know it usually starts at 10, so it's not really, but 11:30, and that's if a game doesn't go into overtime. You could have Rampage, Friday's Rampage on Saturday if a show goes into overtime. To me, that just, you've got to have, and I get it, Warner Brothers and the NCAA tournament is the moneymaker for them. But this is why originally, remember, they went from Dynamite from TNT to TBS. Because TNT had the hockey and everything else, and it was moving Dynamite to different hours, and everybody was trying to figure out what day it was on. And then when, and different shows and things like that. So, and then when the playoffs of NBA came on, they would take precedence, and AEW would get moved. That's why they went to TBS, and it's still, their Rampage show just does nothing. I mean, it gets, I guess, numbers for a 10 o'clock time slot, but other than that, let's see here. Frankie says, yeah, kind of like when Soraya and Storm randomly come out at the end to spray paint someone. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to be too, I think they're even called, or what are they? I forgot their even name of their group now. I looked it up earlier and I didn't even write it down here. But, again, it's one of those things where now Ruby's with the group, which, again, at least it adds an edge to it. But I feel like they have just downgraded the women's division. It used to be AEW had a great tag team division and a great women's division. Now I feel like, to either. I get it, FTR's back. How long are they back for? Once you put the title on the Guns, you lost me as far as having a great tag team division. The Guns never should be a tag team champions unless you put Billy with them and it was as a heel move and you swerved it and you won the titles off them that way. Guns should never have the title. I don't care if they just re-up their contract. That's a crappy move to me. That downgrades your belts to me. That's only my personal opinion. Um, yeah, I think it's like outsiders. If it's outsiders, they're just totally stealing the NWO stuff. If it is the outsiders, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like outsetters or out something. I can't remember what exactly it was. Aren't they doing house shows now? They're going to do a couple of house shows to test. But again, I haven't looked recently at the show here. I know last time I checked, man, them tickets in the third level, they're asking $72 a seat. What the hell? Your product ain't that damn good. I mean, you're I went to WWE in the same building, sat in the same seats for $25. You're gonna charge me 72? Oh boy. Don't think so. Sean, AEW have too many of their wrestlers controlling their own creative. But that was the whole thing. Outcast. Okay. Thanks, SoCal Derek. They're called Outcast. That's right. Okay. That makes sense now. With the controlling their own creative, that was the whole thing about making AEW different, was that they wouldn't be handed scripts and said, here, read they were given bullet points. But also I think that's where now it's getting a little bit out of control, because if somebody goes out there and changes it on the fly, you could end up, the whole storyline could have a change. And that's where some of the, and then also, Tony Khan with Warner Brothers Discovery, remember, the All Atlantic Championship became the International Championship this week. Why? Because they wanted to tie it in with Shazam, and they leveled up. They leveled up the title because they're going to do things like that with Warner Brothers Discovery. So as part of it, Tony Khan said, I got an idea. We changed the name of the belt, which they want to change the name of the belt. That's been an ongoing thing. They decided to do it at that point to reference it into with everything they want to do with Shazam. Frankie said there's still a lot of tickets available for the Florida Live Arena event. Yeah, there's going to be. I checked tickets the other day, and look, man, if I go, there's 4 or 5 of us going. I'm not paying $400 for tickets. You're out of your mind. Because then when I get there, they're going to want shirts. They're going to want, I can go to Disney for that price. And I ain't got to sit there and watch matches that, not really, What am I going to get? As it gets closer and they tell me what matches might be there, that'd be the thing, Frankie, I got my tickets already. I have applied for media, so hopefully they're not watching any of these shows, which is probably bad to say because you would love them to watch it, but they might not let me be in the media if I'm sitting here, blasting them. But again, I'm not necessarily blasting them, man. It's just they are missing something, and they're not touching. They're touching the pulse of their AEW diehards. They are hitting that pulse everything. But they're not getting anything as far as the casual wrestling fan to bring them in. You can see they're not moving anything. And I get it. They're only 3 years old, going on 4 years old or whatever. But you have to start seeing some kind of movement for casual wrestling fans to join if you want it to keep going. I mean, if you just want to keep right at the point, I don't know what they're getting with the TV rights deal. Maybe they're getting enough to do it. But I know if you're paying Jericho, CM Punk's still getting paid to sit at home. You've got Bryan Danielson, you've got Samoa Joe, you got Claudio Castagnoli, and they went there. I'm sure maybe they didn't, with what they're wrestling, the schedule, maybe they're not getting as much as what they would have gotten in WWE, but you're probably still paying a pretty damn good little penny for them. MJF, I'm sure you're paying a good little penny too. Wardlow's contract's going to be coming up. I'm sure you're going to, be in the bidding process for him. I know, I think it's January 1st, 2024 is when MJF. So you're going to have to pay money for them. You got Brian Cage, who apparently his contract he okayed till the end of March. Their ROH Super Card of Honor pay-per-view. then his contract will be up. WWE is interested. I know we talked about it a little bit on the show. I don't know, with all of these contracts coming up with AEW, is WWE sitting back there going, okay, we're going to offer big money to this person, this person. We'll throw okay money at this person, and we'll look at this person as well. Because to me, Brian Cage is somebody that if you could get, the machine behind him, it's a pretty damn good little character. His character you could push, and he could work his ass off. Now, is he going to be able to work that way in WWE? Probably not, because WWE is not going to allow it, which is another reason why some people decide to go to AEW, because they have the creative freedom for their characters. But also, as it's been pointed out on the chat, and I agree, it is also a detriment to the product, because it's just, Jon Moxley. Let's talk about Jon Moxley, because heaven knows, as soon as he locks up with somebody, he gets busted open. They might as well just bust his ass open as he's walking to the ring. He should just squirt open, blood just flying everywhere. It just doesn't make sense where every damn week on TV, you're bleeding. It does nothing. It means nothing to when you get to a match and you bleed. And that Texas death match was real damn good. The shit they did and everything else was fantastic. But watching Jon Moxley, to me, just meant nothing, because I watched you bleed against every damn person on the AEW roster. So you lose that there. I remember blood, and again, I get it, old guy, get off my lawn. I get all that. But it used to mean something when you bled. Excuse me. When you bled, look, Dusty was a bleeder all the time too, right? Ric Flair, they weren't busted open on TBS unless they were attacked. The Horseman used to attack Dusty all the time and stab the wooden, peg in his head, and a Magnum TA as well. And then it got to the I Quit match, and then he's got it going for Tully Blanchard's eye, and then Tully's like, I quit, because he doesn't want the stick to go into his eye. Those are the stories, okay, you got me the first time, but now, it just, to me, AEW is losing some of it, because everything's done on TV to me. Some of their matches on TV are better than the pay-per-view matches. I get it. You only get 4 pay-per-views a year, but you have to maximize it. So, again, Swerve Strickland came out saying he does not need to go over many heads in AEW to do whatever he wants with his character, like in WWE NXT. No, that's what I'm saying. Again, it's the creative freedom. And I believe, to a point, you have to have a little bit of freedom with a character. You have to believe in that. You can't get, the one thing I think WWE did wrong, and I'm sorry, sometimes it looks like I'm rolling my eyes, but I'm looking at the camera, so I feel like I'm looking at you guys every once in a while. So I'm not really rolling my eyes. I'm trying to look up at the camera. Is that WWE used to sign like characters and names. And I just thought sometimes you're not that person. It's like, and this is more toward the cartoony days. Wild Bill Irwin. Let's use it. And again, I'm going to lose a lot of people here. Wild Bill Irwin was a guy who used to run around with a whip, a bullwhip, and a trench coat, and he's a cowboy guy. WWE gets a hold of him, brings him in, and he's the Goon, a hockey guy. And it's like, I'm not believing this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and then these guys have to do these these gimmick. And even Kane, when he was brought in to be the fake Diesel, he's like, I didn't believe in it. When you don't believe in a character, you can't portray said character the way that people want it. Austin Theory, I believe he was getting lost in the whole thing of the Theory you're seeing now, I believe, is Austin Theory. before being the little like Weasley guy. No, he's the guy that he just thinks he thinks and he knows he's the shit. And that portrays out. And now that you've seen that, you're seeing a different Austin Theory. And his presentation is 10 times better to me than what you did see before. When Vince had him running around and all this stuff. You're seeing, to me, a better presentation because he believes in that character. You know, so that's one of the things that NXT helps with. But the problem also too with the NXT to the main roster problem that they've had before was that once Vince got you, then he wanted to change you when you went up. That made no damn sense. Keith Lee is on NXT. He's freaking bulldozing Adam Cole over the barricade into the crowd. Then he gets to the main roster, and Vince is like, "You're the Bearcat, Keith Lee." Dude, just let him be Keith Lee. You know, you look at guys every time they come up, it's like, what the hell? You watch this guy in NXT, and then he gets brought up to the main roster, and it's like, what is this? And that, to me, has been one of the disconnects with WWE is you watch a character NXT, and they want you to watch that character, and they want you to watch him grow. Then they move him to the main roster, and it's like, that's not him. Karrion Kross, the first time he was with the company, you move him up, and then you put a freaking helmet on his head? Like, what the hell is the helmet? That's not him. You know, it's one of those things to where it's a little bit tough, man. It's a little bit tough for some of these guys and gals, you know. But I feel like now with Triple H, and again, maybe I'm totally wrong with this. I'm just going off of what I see. Feels like there's a little bit more creative freedom for some of these guys. I'm not saying that it's still not as tight as it was, because when you watch the presentation, you see that. But I feel like they're getting a little bit more feedback into what their character is, or how their character acts on screen. You know, and also with social media now, you know, guys, you kind of get to understand who guys really are if you follow them on social media. You know, and you get to understand their real lives. And that's one of the things that, you know, again, you can say it hurt the business, say it helped the business, however you, whatever side of the line you're on there. But it has allowed you also to open up that world to see that there is more to them than just, you know, wrestling. Let's see, Moxley getting busted open will have been perfect for the mid to late 80s. Not even as much as he's getting busted open. I mean, maybe in the territories, you know, if he was the main event, you know, you got blood. But I mean, he's just busted open every damn match. I mean, he opens the show when he's busted open. It's like, you know, I go back to, you know, more of the stuff that I did here, you know, on the indie scene. But, you know, you had kind of a crescendo of how the matches went up. You know, you had your opening match to get the crowd going. Second match was kind of like okay match to where if somebody needed to go bathroom or, you know, whatever. Your third match was kind of your semi-main event for the first half of the show. Then you kind of had your first half main event, intermission. Then you come back and you kick it off with another great match to get the people back into it. Then maybe you have one more match and then your main event, a 7 to 8 match card. You know, and that's one of the things is that sometimes 3 hours to me is too long, but that's what they've agreed to, and that's what they have to honor. So sometimes the problem with Raw too is that it gets dragged out because, you know, although now at least they have the talent with Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, you know, Sammy, Kevin, the Usos, you know, Chad Gable. Those guys could go 2 to 3 segments in a match to eat up some of the TV time. So now it's not as much dragging along as when it was all big barbarians and they can only do 3 to 5 minute matches. You got to fill time. So you throw in extra vignettes and this and that. And it's one of those things, man. Let's see. Undertaker was right when he said wrestlers nowadays don't live their gimmicks, and that's an issue. Yeah, that, and then also though, like, I mean, think about the Undertaker, and this is another thing funny that I read too in the show prep. The Undertaker showed up at the Raw when he did with Bray Wyatt, and they're like, "Did you bring the hat and the coat?" And he's like, "No, I don't do that anymore. Once I pulled the curtain back, there's no reason for me to do the storytelling anymore of the Undertaker. There's no reason. The curtain's been pulled back on the Undertaker." And that goes back to where, you know, it's not necessarily, gimmicks nowadays are not, would the Undertaker work nowadays? I don't know. Maybe if you got the right guy, maybe if Mark Calloway reinvented himself and came back. But you have to remember, there were shows where he would leave in the paramedics ambulance and get dropped off 3 or 4 blocks away to a car. Like he said on his when they were doing the documentary on him, he would get dropped off at like car garages 3 or 4 blocks away where him and Paul Bearer had the car so they could leave, because he didn't want to be in that line of people leaving and people being able to see him. And then people wised up to that. One of the shows too that a lot of the guys don't like is Madison Square Garden, although it's their biggest show. But you have to walk from across the street, the parking garage, and walk through the fans to get into the arena. There's a lot of things nowadays that, I mean, I go back to, the my time on the indie scene. I mean, we did a gimmick where we wore masks. So, as you're driving from town to town, you don't necessarily have to have it on, but as you get within, right before town limits, you throw the mask on and you ride in. Nowadays, you think you're going to be able to ride around town with a mask on? You know what I'm saying? Like nowadays, what they used to do is either have a towel on their head or a hoodie and keep their head down. And then, as they get to the show and they pull up, then they can throw the mask on. We used to drive through the towns. We went into a gas station in Illinois and picked up drinks and food and water with our masks on. You're not doing that nowadays. You're not doing that. And also, I should say this beforehand. We had no eyes. It was just a stocking over our face. So yes, we sent one guy in to let them know what we were doing, so they didn't think they were getting robbed. But our mask had it was just straight a stocking over our face as far as it went. It looked like, you had no face or anything else like that. So, but like nowadays, I don't know that you necessarily can get away with that. I mean, look at Rey Mysterio, all the ways he used to have to take pictures. He would throw his hand up like this, he'd have it covered like this. He would have somebody's arm in front of his face to where he couldn't see it. There were so many ways that he did. I mean, again, in WCW, they took his mask off, then it didn't matter. But before that, he would always throw something in front of his face so that you didn't know who he was. I don't know today that those gimmicks would work, the Undertaker and all those, because I don't know how you could be that 24/7 and get away with it. You almost have to be yourself now. And that's the age that we're in now. Undertaker was kind of the last, I believe, of those gimmicks when you can do that. I mean, you could be the Road Warriors nowadays, but that was just 2 big ass guys, Animal and Hawk, RIP, that just ran roughshod over people. You could have those, but I don't think you can have, the gimmicks are the person that they are. Now, trying to think now, is there anybody? I mean, you got Wardlow, I guess, but again, that's just who he is. It's just Wardlow, So I just don't think those gimmicks will last. And again, it's an issue for some of them, but also I think wrestling has changed. It's not seen as the the business has changed a lot. Some for the good, I believe, some for the good. Again, you got AEW, taking care of the wellness policy for WWE, things like that. Those things didn't exist back then. Now they do. So a lot of stuff has changed for the good, but I do think, you know, the good and the bad of social media is now you can get yourself out there on social media, and you can get booked in different places because now you can just go to you shush, Alex Palenzuela, shush. But I think it helps some people get booked nowadays, and I think also it helps now that there's two companies. So Wyatt has a good gimmick, but WWE does not know how to write his storylines. But also, what Bray Wyatt does is Bray Wyatt is Bray Wyatt. Do you know what I'm saying? He's not walking around as the Fiend. He's not flying through airports as the Fiend. That's the one step he took to where it's Bray Wyatt is Bray Wyatt. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that is a gimmick to where, yeah, but if he was the Fiend and he's having to, try to keep that gimmick going, it just doesn't work nowadays. And then the other thing is too is, the other thing that's lost is if you want to call it kayfabe and all that stuff, that's been lost. Again, because on social media you can see into the real lives of these characters, Ms. and Mrs. You watch him interact with his kids, and I still don't know how he can be such an ass on TV and people hate him. When you watch him on his show and you're like, this guy's a pretty damn good dad. He's a pretty damn good person. So it is one of those things. And then also the last thing I want to talk about was, and I don't know if he's on here. I didn't see, is Boss B on here today? I don't think I saw Boss B. But some interesting news, some good news for me. Danhausen, yeah, but again, he's not that famous. But also, it's just paint on his face and acting weird and doing little, it's not the Undertaker where, you're just walking through with your eyes rolling up and everything else. Danhausen, it's kind of like Sting. Sting can get away with being Sting. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the face paint. It's whatever. Same with Darby Allin. They can get away with those gimmicks. I'm talking more about the Undertaker. He doesn't talk. He walks slow. He, all those things that he, that you've seen there. But CCW, Coastal Championship Wrestling, and Kevin Sullivan have recreated Championship Wrestling from Florida. Can't wait for this project, and I cannot wait to see how this goes. Kevin Sullivan's going to be executive producer and creative director. Gangrel is going to be a producer and head of talent relations. Bill Alfonso is going to be a producer and media relations. And the Championship Wrestling from Florida banner had been defunct since 1987. And then, of course, I think it's Neilio is the owner of CCW. He's heavily involved with this. And I thought this was pretty cool because I grew up on Championship Wrestling from Florida with Gordon Soley and Dusty and Blackjack Mulligan and Barry Windham and Kendall Windham, Kevin Sullivan, Ron Bass, Kendo Nagasaki, Scott McGee, Sweet Brown Sugar, Tyree Pride, Purple Haze, One Man Gang, Abuda Dean, all those great, talents and everything. And those things are one of the things that I'm interested to see what the product will look like. Because I seen the talent in CCW. I love it. I know the product's not going to be, as gritty because again, you watch them and you learn. And I grew up with those, characters, larger than life. Abdul the Butcher, of course, came in and out as well. You grew up with those larger than life guys. Those were my Saturday morning cartoons. It was Saturday morning cartoons for a little bit, Championship Wrestling from Florida, and then This Week in Baseball. And then it usually went into a baseball game after that. So that was my childhood, So I am excited to see what they do with this and see how they and again, you said it right there, Armando. Epic voice, the great Gordon Soley. It's one of those things to where very, very interested to see what the product will look like. and with those minds involved in it and see where it goes. Missing link as well. Yes, yes, Terry. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they do it. I've seen the CCW product, see the CC product. They're called the Last Real Territory. They're doing a lot. They're going up to Kissimmee. They're in Homestead. They're all over the place, And then so I was excited to see that they're bringing that back together. Gangrel also runs the CCW school there, so the talent's trained. And also when you watch the CCW card, Cha Cha Charlie, LeKay, Ariel, you have those those men and women. Kylan King, I don't know if she's still with CCW. I know she showed up on Impact. I don't know what the contract is there. So you have a lot of good talent that shows up. Diamante every once in a while. I don't know how the Championship Wrestling from Florida banner will go with the wrestlers that are contracted, because I got to believe they're probably going to shoot some TV and probably have it on one of the channels here on a Saturday or Sunday morning. So we'll have to see where it goes from, but I will keep an interested eye on it, and we'll see where it goes from there. Cat for Life says, is live from the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. That was NWA or Georgia Championship Wrestling those days. Frankie says, boss be heavily invested. Yeah, no, I know that. I know when we were on here, when we started up a while ago, he was going to those shows in there. Hopefully I'll be able to get out to them. I just got between the show here and what I'm trying to get going. It's a little bit of trials and tribulation I'm going through right now. So hopefully I'll be able to get out to one of those CCW shows and get to talking to some of them and see, maybe get a little bit of an insider's edge on what they're trying to do with that. Hopefully they get a voice too that can grow with the brand. Gordon Soley will never be, to me, he's the best. And I get it. There's Jim Ross. There's all the other guys. But to me, there will never be another Gordon Soley. Just the way he called the action. Then he could sit there and he'd do the interview. And then, he had Buddy Colt there with them at times, and just amazing stuff for me. And again, that goes back to my childhood and things like that. So with that being said, yeah, the broadcaster they had, yes, Blake Chadwick is now with NXT. He's doing their show on, I believe it's Friday nights or something like that. But yeah, he's doing that show there. So they're gonna have to find somebody, and again, that's probably good, because now somebody's got to grow with the product. And as I always end my show, in the words of the great Gordon Soley, so long from the Sunshine State.